Yay, 420 MSP, Harry here with something we don't do at 420 MSP, but we're going to break the rules. We're going to call it breaking news. And the reason is we're talking about the November 3rd election in a key state regarding the adult use legalization of cannabis. And we're with Joe Danielsen, a known figure in the SMB Nation community. Welcome back. I want to say from yesteryear, but you're still out there alive and kicking. You're an MSP. You're a member of the state legislature in New Jersey. So you're a very interesting person that you have this dual skill set. And then we're joined by an industry leader, Tara. And Tara, we'll introduce you in just a second. Let's get the context with Joe for people in my audience who know of Joe. And sir, what have you been up to the last 15 years?
Harry, thank you very much for inviting me onto your show. I've been maintaining and running my small MSP IT consulting business, enjoying it. It's been interesting changes in the industry. Also, I have become a member of the New Jersey General Assembly, and I've been a legislator since 2014. And I do both, run my company, and I'm a legislator, which is a part-time position that you work full-time at. And I've been doing other things, but cool. Remarkably, I became one of the lead people on the marijuana initiative.
Yeah, and talk to us about that, and then we'll bring Tara in, and then we're going to talk about the election that's under 2 weeks away. So how the heck did you become a leader, a political leader in the cannabis marijuana area in New Jersey? I mean, a door opened and you walked through the door? What's up?
That's literally what happened. I got pulled to the side by the Speaker of the Assembly and said, "How would you like to manage marijuana?" I said, "Interesting." And he asked me what my position was on it. And I told him I didn't have one. I didn't know much about it, and I never tried it at that time. And so I started holding committee meetings around the state. I collected a group of experts like Tara Masood, that's with us today, oncologists, doctors, nurses, cultivators, bankers, people who were victimized by the law enforcement, people of higher education institutions, anyone that could add an intellectual contribution to the discussion. I amassed these groups, and then I formulated a consortium. Again, Ms. Tara was part of that at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, where we actually wrote the set of goals we wanted to reach in the marijuana legislation. And we had about 30 goals that we wanted to be included in any legislation. And we have about 24, 25 of those out of the 30 have been reached already. That legislation was passed, and now New Jersey, and that was all exclusively for medical marijuana.
Okay.
So we increased the type of licenses, the entry point for women and minorities, for institutions of higher education, for medical institutions. We right now for medical marijuana are the most progressive state in the nation.
Okay, cool. Tara,
well, let me just introduce Tara, part of Tara, in that I met Miss Tara at my committee meetings, and she and I quickly partnered up, and she wrote most of that legislation. She and I spent weekends in our office. We did all-nighters and research and copying and analyzing. Without question, Miss Tara has more ink in that law book than any other person in New Jersey.
Well, let's hand off the talking stick. So, Tara, properly introduce yourself. I know you as a leader in the cannabis field, but I don't know all the details. So, please.
Yes. Well, I will thank Joe for that compliment there. And this was definitely a labor of love. We did put together some fabulous legislation. And one great thing about the stall on adult use is we really got to perfect our medical. And I will say it's also we're very fortunate to have someone in the New Jersey legislature that knows IT, that is familiar with that world, because in America that's a real rarity. Over in Asia, there's a lot of politicians who are science, medicine, technology. That's the majority. In America, they're mostly lawyers. So to have someone who even understands this and can bridge that gap and take some considerations is really refreshing. But so a little bit about myself. I started in cannabis 11 years ago. Before that, I was a graphic designer. But I invented the first brownie mix for herbal brownies. It optimizes THC usage. So that was picked up by Spencer Gifts. It's in about 1,000 stores nationally. And from there, after Governor Murphy got in office in 2018, I got heavily involved in New Jersey cannabis legalization, which led me to the hearings where I met Joe. And one of the things I've really fought for hard is women, minorities, veterans, and small
Yep.
business. That was something we really got a lot of allowances on this bill, more than any in the nation, to be honest. And that political efforts led me to come on board to the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association, where I'm the executive director. It's the state's first and largest cannabis trade organization. And I also teach at Atlantic Cape Community College, Cannabis 101, which was one of the state's first accredited colleges to have a
Oh,
cannabis course.
accredited.
And
Yes.
through my over decade of networking contacts, I've started recently on 420, it launched the podcast Trailblazing with Tiramisu, which is available everywhere. And we interview cannabis professionals like yourself. And there's probably more, but that'll give you an idea.
Great. Well, let me thank you. No, thank you. And both of you, welcome anytime. I mean, I want to focus on the election now, but after that, we have more talking to do, especially post-election. But Tara, why don't you go first? So I need to kind of understand, or both of you, but uh, I do track government affairs in the cannabis sector, not as much as the cannabis technology area, but I am interested in that area. And so you have, in some states, I believe, the legislature can pass a law. And then in other states, the voters vote and pass the law. So what's going on in New Jersey? Was the medical a legislative action, and then the election coming up as a voter action for adult use? Tara, go ahead.
Absolutely. So, we were fortunate enough to get our medical bill passed last year in July 2019.
And that was
Um,
through the legislature or assembly.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
we had, full support both sides of the aisles. It went through very easily. What we did not have, unfortunately, and it was only because of a few votes and a couple things that some people couldn't get on board with, mainly coming down to weight and quantities and real minutia, that the adult use bill failed. And
Okay.
we had several almost wins, and we just couldn't get it across the line through the legislature. So that would have been preferable because it would have given us more flexibility moving forward. But we are putting it to a ballot, which is amazing because now we're putting it into the hands of the people in New Jersey. Now, the support we have is truly amazing. You mentioned in the beginning that we have over 60% popular support. Well, that number is creeping towards 70%. And
Wow.
early polling from the ballots, interviewing people who have already cast their vote, looks like we have almost three-quarter support for this. So our biggest problem with the cannabis ballot was not even support. It should go through easily. I mean, the only thing is the oddest thing, people didn't know they had to flip over their ballot. So yeah, it's crazy, but most people go to a polling station. First time they're ever mailing it in, they didn't know the question was on the back. So the people it's not no votes, it's people who, this crazy pandemic and this situation we're in.
Yeah.
But even with that margin of error, I think we'll be very good getting this across the line. And then on November 4th, work starts all over again
Yeah.
of getting these regulations set and getting things implemented.
Yeah, and that'll be a future conversation because, again, as I've invested my time into the cannabis vertical, it's been very interesting about the rollout in the state of Illinois and lessons learned in Colorado and Washington State and blah blah blah. I mean, it's we're at the beginning of a whole new world. Joe, would you like to add some commentary to the legislative side, and then I have a couple questions for both of you about neighboring states and the domino effect. Joe, go ahead if you'd like to compound the thinking about what happened in the legislature and the ballot. For example, did you write the ballot initiative, or was that a citizens group that wrote it?
Neither. Leadership had Office of Legislative Services write it. It had to be carefully crafted, and then when it does pass, new legislation will have to be written based upon that passing. We have a marijuana commission that was formed, which was established in the last legislation that Tara helped us write. And then there's other things we have to address going forward. We still have to address safety measures.
Yeah.
We have to address security. We have to address IT and currency and financial transactions. There's just a lot to handle, because when you go from no industry to standing an industry up, that's one thing. But now you're standing two industries up, medical marijuana and non-medical. And you also don't want to crush the medical marijuana market, because that's very important for a lot of reasons. But we will stand up a non-medical marijuana industry. And hopefully, because of that, one of the positive side effects is it will further support the medical marijuana market as well.
Yeah, Tara, back to you. If you'd like to add to that, but we're starting to wrap up on the time allocation we have. So I'm curious about what I'm reading in some of my favorite journals about the domino effect with the surrounding states. Any thoughts on that? So we're going to pass it's going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I will add to that is it's interesting. I know you said we do a follow-up to talk about security and data and record keeping and all that. And we're literally not only moving from a new market, we are creating a market where the goal was to not have a paper trail coming into now something where we need records. So it's really a complete 180 from everything that was in the knowledge base of a lot of these operators. So the domino effect, I think, is imminent. I think New York will be the next to come on board, because there was kind of a silent race going on between the two. And I'm very pleased to say Jersey will win that race. And then, we definitely will. And then we're definitely going to see the Northeast, I think, start falling. Certainly we have Massachusetts already. And I mean, we're going to be a powerhouse because our population alone, Jersey is a very densely populated state. And then we have 130 million people within a day's drive. So you're going to see people coming into the state. And, right now with COVID, we need to rebuild our economy, and we're going to get the people to get those, cannabis tourism dollars, which is amazing.
Yeah. One of our regular analysts is Chuck Maines out of Austin, Texas. So he's the leading hemp lobbyist for that industry in the state of Texas. And they have taxation envy is why Texas will probably move faster than you expect, because oil's down, COVID, it's kind of the perfect storm for Texas. And he predicts it's going to hang on fast. It's going to happen faster. It'll happen in our lifetime, which I could not have committed to with old Texas.
So, and listen to this statistic. So New Jersey we arrest 100 people a day. We have the third highest incarceration rate in the country for cannabis. And with that, we spend 143 million every year arresting people, minorities at over 3 times the rate, mostly for low-level possession. Now we're going to save that 143 million. And additionally, we're estimated the first year to bring in 330 million in new tax revenue. So, I mean, it's going to really be a game changer for the state. And I mean, in the social justice aspect alone, we're working expungement into these bills, and we're going to change lives.
Harry, on the IT level, this is a unique client. I remember back 15 years ago, we used to discuss things like, law firms, should we have them as clients or should we reject them? Now it might be marijuana dispensaries or
Yeah.
cultivators. Do we have them or do we not? Well, every business could be an excellent client. But what's unique about the marijuana businesses, there's technology all throughout these buildings, through these companies, and they're going to need MSPs. They're going to need people like you and I. What's also unique is most banks won't deal with marijuana companies because of
Correct.
the federal prohibition. So you have to either get a state chartered bank or other services. There are other services using blockchain, for example, that will proxy your transaction, and you'll just be one company of an aggregate of all their other clients. But they're going to need point of sale systems, their regular local area networks, their security systems, their access entry systems. There's a lot of technology in marijuana dispensary processors and cultivators that has to be maintained. I think for anyone getting into the marijuana market from an IT angle, there's a lot of business there for you. And more real estate, more IT real estate you could get your hands around, the better off that MSP will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to wrap on one final thought. Tara, it was sort of a flyby comment of yours, but I've talked about it up in our up on 420 MSP, and it was I'm a pretty open-minded person, and hopefully, but I couldn't connect the dots for the longest time between the cannabis initiatives, because I'm on the business side, right? So I get it, tech and business. And then the social equity side. And I've had some good dialogue. I mean, and again, I understand the social equity side, but my position was I thought they were two different conversations, right? So let's get the thing going with Cannatech and business and adult use. And then, yes, I'm a good person and I see the social equity, but I've seen it combined. And I'd like maybe you and both of you to comment on that, because that didn't feel like a natural act to me. Please help me out.
Well, I could get this started unless you want to go, Joe.
No, you can.
So one thing, and I think this ties in, obviously there's people incarcerated as we speak, people being arrested as we speak for something people are making billions of dollars off. So, I mean, that is just an incredible injustice. And that ties into, who's a businessman and who's a criminal. And it depends what side of a state border you're on. But aside from that, so many states have had, California has had a medical industry for 25 years now. With their decrim, they have such a gray market. They have small business opportunities there. People have been making a living off it. In New Jersey, because we're so late to the game and we've had a very limited license state, we mostly have millionaires and billionaires getting licenses. And majority of them are out of state, multi-state operators, public Canadian companies, things like that. So something we really need to focus on is social justice through business, of taking these people, getting their records cleared, and then giving them a pathway to success to say, this thing you have lost so many years of your life, your family has been destroyed for, let's make sure you can have a license too, which is what we talked about in the social equity piece for licensing of small business, women, and minorities. So we're really trying to correct some ills that have happened and just the absolute racism that we've seen in arrest levels. Black and white people have similar cannabis use levels, but are arrested at 3 times the rate. So there is some justice to be had there. So they're absolutely intrinsically connected.
Okay, Joe, final thoughts, and we'll call it good for this month, and we'll talk post-election.
Harry, there's a lot of opportunity happening in New Jersey. On election day, we're going to pass the referendum that will not decriminalize, but will legalize marijuana. There'll be more businesses, there'll be more jobs, there'll be more money and more opportunity for more people. New Jersey's moving forward, and the IT industry should absolutely, without a question, lead that way. Technology, science must be the force pushing any new industry forward.
All right. So Tara and Joe, thank you for your time. This was great. You've helped me understand Election Day a little bit better. I understand Montana is a possibility that that's trending well there. I said that's the final word. Maybe we'll make this the final word. Could either of you speak to other states? I have tracked Montana and I've tracked New Jersey. Are there other ones that are
I will speak to
out there?
Mississippi because they are super corrupt. Okay, so what happened in Mississippi is there is a grassroots organization there that drafted an amazing cannabis bill that put patients first, that put the rights in the hands of the people. And because the legislature there has crushed the bill something like 20 times, don't quote me on that, I'm not from
Okay.
Mississippi. But what they did, whatever their bill number was, they made, I think it's 61, they made Bill 61A, which was so obviously influenced by corporations and money and, just all the worst things. And that takes all the power away from the people and puts it all in the hands of the corporations. So, and the other thing they did is awful is if you don't know, because there's select yes, and then do you want 61 or 61A? And if you don't choose one, they get to choose. So just voting yes also puts the power in the hands of other people. So you have to know to pick I believe it's 61, Google it. Don't quote me on this. There were 6 states on the ballot. I tried to educate myself on all of them. But yeah, so people in Mississippi, if you're listening, look into that, get it right.
Yeah, I'll poke into that after we get off the air. Hey, and as a gratuity with our analyst, I'm going to get you the copy of the book. This is basically how to be a cannabis MSP. Now, this was published about 20 months ago when there was still some sensitivity on the branding. So it's actually the back cover where we talk about the unique workloads and the uniqueness of the cannabis vertical. But that's going to be in your inbox as soon as we get off the air. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. Looking forward to future conversations.
Thank you, Harry. SMB Nation.